Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
Arizona entered the tournament as a number 2 seed and feeling good about their chances, but Princeton had other ideas. Also, Virginia had a front row seat to the end of a long streak, and Auburn gets awarded a date with Houston for beating Iowa. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook, official sportsbook of Locked On. Make every moment more and visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn today to get started.
I'm Peter Bukowski, starting your day with the can't-miss stories and biggest debates in sports. You're Locked On Sports Today.
Searching all major sports. Found.
Let's start with the biggest story.
15 seeds rarely beat 2 seeds, but Arizona finds little comfort in that because that's exactly what happened to them when they faced 15 seed Princeton.
March Madness in full swing, of course, and everybody loves an upset except for Locked On Wildcats because it was at the expense of their team. Princeton taking down Arizona. And I hadn't seen many people calling for this one in an upset. So watching it live, what was it like for you to see, Mike?
Well, this was just a difficult game all the way around because the first thing is, you got Arizona, you got Julius Tubelis, who's obviously the best player on the court, but he didn't really get any help out here, especially from the perimeter. When you got Kirk Kriisa going 1 of 8 from the field with 4 turnovers, Courtney Ramey going 4 of 10, Pella Larson not doing anything either, Sed Henderson. Basically, it was just kind of a comedy of destruction there on the perimeter. And when you just have Julius Tubelis and Umar Ballo doing that, quite frankly, that's just not good enough. But honestly, I guess a team like Princeton, you should still be able to beat them, especially because Princeton was 4 of 24 from 3-point range. So it's not like they shot the lights out or anything. But honestly, there's no way to sugarcoat this. This was a devastating performance.
And I mean, it has to hurt a little bit more because when you're looking at this, it's not a Cinderella necessarily making these crazy unbeatable shots. It almost felt a little bit like the Wildcats beat themselves.
Yeah, very, very much so. And the thing about this, and Tommy Lloyd was just talking about this a little bit in the presser, is that, when they're not hitting shots, when they're not, they've got to find other ways to be able to get in there. They got to find other ways to be able to score. And they just weren't able to do that. And down the stretch, I mean, watching it live, watching it on TV, this was a spot where Arizona just did not they didn't embrace the moment. You see teams all the time that embrace the moment there, and they didn't embrace the moment. And not only did they not embrace the moment, it didn't look like anybody wanted the ball. And I think when you're a top 2 seed, that's something you want. That's something you expect, that you want to be able to have a team that's going to embrace the ball. And they didn't have any of that.
When you look forward, obviously, you're a top 2 seed. The talent is there on this team. Is it just veteran experience that they need a little bit more to kind of alleviate some of these concerns when they're getting into these high pressure moments and they're not coming through?
Yeah, honestly, I mean, like you said, when you're a number 2 seed, you expect to be able to beat teams like this. And I think a big question, and again, I'm just going off a lot of what Tommy Lloyd said in his presser, is that you've got to be able to have, listen, this is a game that you should win. There's just no really other way around it. This is a game that you should win. And Arizona they didn't have any of that gusto to it. They didn't have any of that spunk. And, honestly, I don't know where you quite go from here, to be honest, because you've got this is a team, that's got a lot of extra players. It's got a lot of older players on it. And you didn't really see a lot of improvement. You didn't see a lot of guys at the end of the game that clearly wanted the ball, that clearly wanted to embrace that moment. And I think that's what's frustrating if you're an Arizona fan, is that they were there all season, and then when it really mattered, really nowhere to be found.
Mike, we appreciate you. We know you're live there at the game, so you got to see it firsthand, and we'll get a lot more on Locked On Wildcats into a recap of what exactly went down and the whole season. Of course, check out Locked On College Basketball as well. All of this part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Stay up to date all year on Arizona Wildcats athletics by following Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Wildcats on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for making Locked On Sports Today your first to listen. Coming up, the upset bug bit another big-time program. But before we get to that, the NFL saw more impact signings on Thursday. The midway point of the NBA season has come and gone, and now is the perfect time to download FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook, because new customers get a no-sweat first bet up to $1,000. That's bonus bets back if your first bet doesn't win. Just download the FanDuel Sportsbook app. It's safe, secure, and super easy to use. Then you can bet on everything from the money line to point scorers and threes drained. Or you can check out the matchup of Providence and Kentucky. The number 6 seed Wildcats are a slight favorite over the Friars, and FanDuel has UK as a 4.5-point favorite. You can also combine multiple prop bets in one game into a same game parlay for an even larger payout. So don't miss the chance to get your no sweat first bet up to $1,000 in bonus bets when you go to FanDuel.com/lockedon. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon to learn more. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sports betting partner of the NBA. Multiple players found new teams in the NFL on Thursday. The New York Giants added wide receivers Parris Campbell and retained wide receiver Darius Slay. The Chicago Bears are adding tight end Robert Tonyan and running back Foreman on one-year deals. And after some speculation like he may be on the move, cornerback Darius Slay signed a 2-year extension to remain with the Philadelphia Eagles. In NBA news, Michael Jordan is engaged in serious talks of selling his majority stake in the Charlotte Hornets. The group moving to purchase Jordan's stake is led by Hornets minority owner Gabe Plotkin and Atlanta Hawks minority owner Rick Schnall. No deal is imminent, but there's significant momentum on a sale that would eventually put Plotkin and Schnall as co-governors of the Hornets. If the sale is completed, Jordan is expected to remain with a minority stake in the franchise. The Milwaukee Bucks slipped up at home against the Indiana Pacers.
It's been a while since the Bucks have done this, but they put up an absolute stinker, particularly in the second half, and lose to the Pacers for the first time ever inside Fiserv Forum. My name's Kane Pittman. I'm the host of the Locked On Bucks podcast. Things looked relatively in control, even if the Bucks weren't firing on all cylinders in the first half. But 49 points to the Pacers in the third, another 35 in the fourth quarter, and the Bucks end up losing this one 139-123 to a Pacers team that has been struggling. This does have ramifications. The Bucks are trying to lock up the #1 seed in the East, and you would prefer not to lose to teams that are just battling for the play-in. So this is a bad loss, make no mistake about it. No Brook Lopez, only the second time this season he hasn't played. Giannis was in foul trouble for much of the night. He still finished with 25 points, but was limited to 27 minutes in this game. So overall, the defense did get it done in this one, and the Bucks will have to look to bounce back on Sunday night as the home stand continues. Check out the Locked On Bucks podcast.
The Brooklyn Nets offense was shut down on their home court by the Sacramento Kings.
Doug Norrie, Locked On Nets coming at you following Kings Nets in a game where Brooklyn, great news, held Sacramento and the league's leading offensive efficiency team to just 101 points. Must have been a win, right? Wrong. The Kings, in their 25th ranked defense, held the Nets to just 96 points. Brooklyn missed a ton of threes, plenty of chances to get back in the game. Looked like they were going to be able to scrap it out. Ultimately, though, they were not able to get over the hump. They were allowed Domantas Sabonis to go absolutely wild in this one with 24 points, 21 rebounds in a game where the Nets just couldn't secure the ball late in order to come back. We're going to be talking about this recent swoon for the Nets, what their play-in chances are starting to look like, and what to expect from this Brooklyn team going forward with over on Locked On Nets.
On the ice, the Boston Bruins got a road shutout win over the Winnipeg Jets.
The Boston Bruins got back to their winning ways here on Thursday night, defeating the Winnipeg Jets by a score of 3-0. This is Ian McLaren, host of Locked On Boston Bruins, and it was some depth players who stood up offensively for Boston, with goals coming from Trent Frederick, Pavel Zacha, and then an empty netter from Thomas Nosek. Jeremy Swayman made 35 saves in the game for his shutout win. If there was one dark spot for the Bruins, it was an injury suffered by Derek Forbort, the defenseman, who had to leave after blocking a shot in the second period. But the good news is, after 2 straight losses, 3 losses in their past 4, the Boston Bruins rebounded with a big win over a pretty good Winnipeg Jets team, and they'll now head to Minnesota to take the Wild on Saturday.
Virginia matched up with a school whose tournament resume is very short. Foreman had not won an NCAA tournament game since the 70s. Well, they ended that streak of losses on Thursday when they dramatically took down Virginia.
March Madness in full swing. We did not have to wait long for an upset. Number 13, Foreman, taking down the 4-seed Virginia. I'm Kainani Stevens. We are joined by Locked On Virginia Cavaliers, Lawrence Johnson, because oh my, if you guys didn't get a chance to see this game, it was something you want to go back and check out, because we were talking a little bit before, Lawrence. It was like I had no idea how this game was going to end at any given moment until it actually ended.
Yeah, I mean, this was a game that a lot of the talking heads, a lot of the media personalities had said this was going to be an upset. You know, I said, no way, there's not going to be an upset. I'm absolutely wrong. You know, and if Virginia's ever going to shake that stigma, going to shake that reputation, they've got to pull big games out. They're well-versed at pulling games out in the regular season out like this, but they cannot win big anymore until they figure this out. The most tenured player, the most steady player, begins his career with one of the best plays of all time in March Madness, and now he ends his career with one of the worst plays in March Madness, Kihei Clark.
When you look at something like that, where it's like a panicked turnover right at the end, it's not something you expect from a team like Virginia necessarily, because they do have that experience, other than people saying there's that stigma, they're going to get upset, they don't have it when it comes to March Madness. Is this something where it's really like they're hearing that outside noise, it's getting in their head? It looked like it at the end.
For Kihei, definitely. I think that one thing about Kihei, if you watch him through his career, sometimes he presses, when he probably should slow down a little bit more, but he'll turn the ball over, he'll have some turnovers, but, what he gives the team is so much more than, some of the mistakes that he makes, he makes up for it. But this one right here, this is about as bad as it can be. And then, that's what they wanted. I mean, the Paladins asked for a prayer. That was a prayer that fell right out of the sky, right out of at midcourt, falls right into the hands of one of their players, finds their open three-point shooter for the Paladins, and he just knocks a 3 down. Incredible.
And I think also coming into this game, a lot of people called it an upset, but it's one of those things where the mid-major programs are very successful now. It's not like you're just getting all these random teams in there. They're getting teams that are used to winning. So when you come in, is that kind of jarring for them a little bit when they're under the lights, where they're feeling the pressure? The Cavaliers are feeling that pressure, and they're facing a team that they shouldn't be winning, but they have the present, they have won, so they're maybe not intimidated.
Absolutely. You see this in basketball and football. You see some of these, what with the advent of the NIL, also with transfers, the transfer portal, you got a lot of kids who maybe would have been on the bench, but are a full-blown D1 talent. Slauson for the Paladins is an absolutely incredible full-blown Power 5 D1 talent. He just plays for the Paladins. And he showed how remarkable that he can be on the court. He's definitely a top scorer in the ACC if he's in the ACC playing.
When you look at maybe the coaching here, obviously they had some trouble with the zone there in the second half. Do you feel like the players kind of were in the right position to win? Do you feel like there could have been some coaching changes that could have helped that, or is this just unfortunate ending?
I think that there could have been some coaching that they could have coached them better. I think this team is no problem getting into droughts. They always are getting into situations where they're not scoring, and that's what bit them today. The Paladins kept coming. They had UVA had 2 12-point leads. The Paladins just keep coming back. I said this before we, in the beginning, before we started recording. Shooting makes up for a lot of mistakes and also for the lack of talent. The Paladins can straight out shoot. It's like speed in football. If you have some players who have a lot of speed, but maybe the team isn't as talented as the other team, you can make up for a lot of mistakes. And also, you can also compete, on different levels just because of speed. Same thing in basketball. If you have guys who are stone cold shooters from deep, it covers up a lot of differences. And that's what happened today.
Stay up to date all year on Virginia Cavaliers athletics by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Virginia on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Coming up, Auburn took down Iowa, but now face the favorite to win the national championship in Houston. Do you ever search for something on the internet that you don't want anyone else to know about? Do you ever think, I hope no one finds out that I couldn't spell Antetokounmpo? I know most of you are probably thinking, why don't you just use incognito mode? Let me tell you something. Incognito mode does not hide your activity. It doesn't matter what mode you use or how many times you clear your browsing history. Your internet service provider can still see every single website you've ever visited. And that's why even when I'm at home, I never go online without using ExpressVPN. It doesn't matter who your internet service provider is. ISPs in the U.S. can legally sell your information to ad companies. ExpressVPN is an app that reroutes your internet connection through their secure servers so your ISP can't see the sites you visit. ExpressVPN also keeps all of your information secure by encrypting 100% of your data with the most powerful encryption available. Most of the time, I don't even realize I have ExpressVPN on. It runs seamlessly in the background, and it is so easy to use. All you have to do is tap one button and you're protected. ExpressVPN is available on all of your devices, phones, computers, and even your smart TV. So there's no excuse for you to not be using it. Protect your online activity today with the VPN rated #1 by Business Insider. Visit my exclusive link, expressvpn.com/locked, and you can get an extra 3 months free on a 1-year package. That's expressvpn.com/locked. expressvpn.com/locked to learn more. Auburn got the round 1 win they were hoping for over Iowa. Up next is the favorite to win the national championship in Houston.
March Madness is in full swing, and we have another Locked On bracket breakdown as number 9 Auburn topped 8-seeded Iowa in the first round of the NCAA Tournament. I'm Jordan Black, and we are joined by the host of Locked On Auburn, Zach Blackerby. Zach, you're fired up. Round 1 is in the books. Auburn taking down Iowa. Give us your general thoughts on the game, how Auburn fared taking down Iowa tonight.
Yeah, Jordan, in a year where everybody has labeled Auburn as overrated, and this is a down year for the Tigers, Bruce Pearl's done a terrible job coaching. Get out of here with all of those narratives. This team wins 20 games in the regular season and finds a way to win a tournament game against an Iowa team, which I will admit, it's been hot and cold. And look, they were cold in the first half, very hot in the second half, but Auburn weathered the storm, which I think is all that really matters, survive and advance in March. And I think you saw different guys step up, which is really what's kind of cool about this team. And I think it's what makes them a little bit dangerous we assume they'll play Houston on Saturday at the time of us putting this up. But you saw Trey Donaldson off of the bench go 3 of 3, making 3 threes in a row, which was absolutely beautiful. You saw Janai Broome down low take over the game at different stints of it. And you saw Wendell Green close it out. And also, Jordan, he set the Auburn record for consecutive free throws made, and that is still going because he made all 8 of his free throws tonight, including probably 4 of those 8 in the last few minutes to extend it and to keep the game out of reach.
So they've made it to this weekend. You've mentioned they're either going to play Houston or Northern Kentucky by the time we put this up. You're assuming, and most of us are assuming, that it's going to be Houston. What's your take on Saturday's game, and what does Auburn need to do to advance to the Sweet 16?
I think this Auburn team is a team that people don't want to play. And we already saw Houston's head coach come out and pitch a little bit of a fit because Auburn's only playing 2 hours away in Birmingham. It's going to be an electric environment. It was a home game for Auburn. It wasn't played in Neville Arena. It was played up in Birmingham, but it was a home game, much like it was for Alabama earlier in the day. And it's going to be a home game against Houston on Saturday, Jordan. And I don't know. I wouldn't want to play this Auburn team. Look, the record doesn't necessarily scream it, but ever since Auburn's loss in Knoxville, Auburn has led the SEC in three-point percentage. Guard play has been quietly very, very efficient over the course of the last 2 weeks of the season, but the record doesn't scream it because you had to go to overtime against Alabama, but if you play like that against any other team in college basketball, Jordan, you win, and you probably win by a lot. You're definitely a Sweet 16 team if you're able to do that. And then they back it up by playing against Tennessee in the regular season opener, or the regular season finale rather, and all of a sudden you're just like, wow, this Auburn team's peaking at the right time. And then they play Arkansas, who was the highest rated 10 seed in the history of the SEC tournament, and they fell flat in a close one there. But when you just look at the stats and not the record, they're playing their best ball of the season. And if they keep that trend going, I think they beat Houston on Saturday, and I think they're dancing in the Sweet 16.
Stay up to date all year on Auburn Tigers athletics by subscribing to Locked On Sports Today and Locked On Auburn on YouTube and wherever else you get your podcasts. And finally, FIFA, an organization not known for always doing the right thing, is doing the right thing when it comes to the men's and women's World Cups. The prize money for the Women's World Cup winner this year is reportedly being raised to $110 million. That's triple the amount of the last Women's World Cup prize money of just $30 million. FIFA also announced that they are aiming for equal prize money for both World Cups by 2026 and 2027. Thanks for making Locked On Sports Today your first listen. Now go find your favorite team's Locked On podcasts and make them your second listen. Coming up on Monday, what kind of surprises will the weekend of NCAA tournament action provide? We'll keep you in the know. So at least until tomorrow, stay Locked On Sports Today.
Locked On Podcast Network presents Locked On Sports Today.
For more episodes of Locked On Sports Today, go to our video on demand. Click on Sports at the top of your screen. There, you'll find past episodes of Locked On Sports Today, plus other Locked On shows on demand.